Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. So first off, what's your name?
Andrew Dorn.
Can you spell it?
ANDREWDORN.
All right. First question, just pretty simple. How have larger class sizes affected you personally?
They haven't affected me too much this year, but I mean, you can just take note of it. There's less room to sit. I mean, there are a couple classes where like desks are kind of hard to come by, so you have to get to class early. So that's really, I mean, the biggest effect that I've noticed.
Larger class sizes have affected me because it's harder to get time to talk to a teacher, and if you don't understand something, you have to learn it from your friends instead of learning it from the teacher.
Larger class sizes affected me personally because you don't have the opportunity to ask your teachers enough questions. They could just, like, throughout all the kids, you raise your hand, but if it's not as an important question, they just kind of say listen or something like that. But there's so many kids, so you don't really get that many.
Larger class sizes have affected me personally because I have to spend more time in my house studying because I don't have as much time in class to get my work done.
I think one of my largest class sizes is around 56 kids. It is really hard to manage, but I guess we're lucky that we're seniors. We've kind of gotten better at respecting our teacher and sitting and listening, though at times it does get a little rowdy. And there aren't enough desks. So those who come in late or those who have just gotten used to sitting in that area, there's a couple like spare chairs that are at the front of the classroom, and they sit there, but it's kind of hard for them to take notes because they don't have a desk. A lot of the times this year, because I'm a student, I've been seeing the students' perspective, like the stress of the course load and not being able to get help or things like that. But also, it made me feel really bad to see how stressed out our teachers were. And a couple teachers went up there and they were getting emotionally like a little like breaking down a bit, saying like, I feel like I'm not doing good enough, and I used to be proud to be a teacher, but I want to be better for my students, and I can't do that with these large class sizes. And like we all know that they're doing the best they can. Like we're lucky, Sunset's lucky because we have really great teachers, but we can do better.
Well, workload is in some cases doubled based on the fact that I used to have 2 class periods of IB biology at around 26 to 30. Now I have one of 50. Next year, I don't look forward to a class of 76 or 72. Even with 2 classes of that, they're huge numbers. So workload goes up, not just because of papers to grade, but all the preparation that goes into doing stuff.
It's definitely magnified. Whereas, grading a test, a 3 or 4 page test for a class may have taken for about, last year when I had like about 40 of them, that sort of thing, and maybe took about 3 to 4 hours to do that. Now with a class of 50, that's only 10 additional tests, but the problem is that it increases. It's now about 5 or 6 hours or 7 hours. That now that I have 2 classes of 50 kids each, I have about 100 of those tests. So now you're talking about 6 to 7 hours. So now it's not so much it'll take a day to do that kind of grading.
Well, in terms of money and supporting programs, our science department budget has decreased annually. And when they want a lab-based program, that costs money. And so when you don't have enough money to buy the essential consumable supplies you need, chemicals, dissection specimens, those sorts of things, when you don't have that kind of money available, you have to do without. And so you have to cut back on the labs. Now maybe you do a demonstration instead of a lab. And the demonstration, though it's the same thing, it's a lab, now kids are watching rather than doing. So the hands-on experience of science, which is the real valuable part of science, isn't there as much as it should be.
Our science classroom, when we do labs, the lab room is too crowded, and so people run into each other, and then lots of beakers break, and it's just hard to do the lab, and then there's not enough space for everyone to do it at once, so kids will have to come after school and finish a lab, which they might not have time to do.
So I was put into a high-level Spanish class, and when I tried to switch down, I couldn't because the class sizes were too big. So now I have to go through a higher level class, and I'm struggling a little bit.
About 4 or 5 years ago, when we started seeing this trend of cutting teachers and moving teachers around based on class size numbers and such, they always throw the numbers out, but yet the numbers they talk about are not necessarily the numbers that we have. They always talked about a 26-to-1 ratio, but we always seem to be at a 30-to-1 or a 32-to-1 ratio, and now we're up, close to 40-to-1. It just makes it harder and harder to do your job right, the way you were trained to do it, as well as the way the district would like you to do it. But we also understand the funding's not there. What else are we going to do? All we can ask of ourselves as teachers is to do the best job we can and prepare kids the best we can.